Hey everyone, Joe here. I have another PGX to CGC crossover video. Probably my last one. I do have, I think I have 18 more books that I'm waiting for. But I think after this one we'll kind of, get the idea of what goes on when you send books for a crossover. So there are some surprising results during this one. And I've spent quite a bit on this, even though they're, some are $10 and whatnot. I did send a lot of books in. But most of these books I don't have a lot into them. I bought them years ago. This one I bought off the wall years ago. So most, I either paid cover price or $5, maybe $10 for most of these. So again, I think it's money well spent to have them in the CGC holders. So let's just start right here. This is a bit of a downer caliber, and also let me just go back. A lot of these I had graded by PGX a long time ago, so they didn't even say PGX on the holders. They said CGG Group, which was their first name. And I believe CGC sued them, and the geniuses that they are then changed their name to PGA, like the Golf Association. That didn't last long. And I think from there they went to PGX. So fortunately I don't have any PGA books, but I did have a lot of CGG books, which mean nothing to nobody these days. So it's well worth it to get them changed. Anyway, here we go. Caliber presents first appearance of the Crow. This was a 8.5 and it is now 8.0. This one, again, just my thoughts. I thought it was higher when I sent it to PGX. When I got it back, I was kind of shocked and wasn't quite sure it was even the same book I sent. But again, I don't know anything about that. But this went down a half a grade. Next, Evil Ernie. This is probably the only book that I bought recently. I think I bought this a year or two ago. And I have number 1, and this is number 2. I have number 1 and number 3, I think, and maybe even number 4 in CGC holders, so I just wanted them all the same. This one I actually bought raw a little while ago. Let's see if I can get a couple of them here. Okay. Deadpool. 9.4. This was a 9.4. So no change there. And this one I got in a collection, so I really didn't pay anything for it. Daredevil 168. This one is a shocker. This was a PGX 8.0 and came back a CGC 9.0. Also, none of these books were pressed. They just came out of their PGX holder and into the CGC. So this is the only time this happened, a 1 full point increase. Harbinger 9.0, that was a 9.0 before. Daredevil 181, this was a 181 before also. I'm sorry, it was a 9.4. I hope it was a 181 before. So that one didn't change either. Okay, what else do we have? This one this was a good timing buy. I bought this at I guess a half price sale, maybe 3 years ago. And didn't pay that much for it. And then the book took off a short while after. So 9.4 it was, and it came back in 9.4. So these are all mostly current books. No Silver Age here. Sandman. This was a 9.2 PGX and got bumped up to a 9.4. So once again, CGC graded it higher. Before I even get to that, I'll just mention, well, first I got to talk about this one because I don't want this one up on the screen too long. This is Penny for Your Soul number 1. The only reason I own this is I saw it on eBay years ago, and it was a 9.9, PGX 9.9. I figured it would be cool to own a 9.9 book. I only paid $12 for it, so that shows you how much this book was worth and how much a PGX 9.9 is worth. It is one of 100 limited, so again, pointing out that the number printed means nothing if nobody's interested in the book. So I only sent this off because if I was to get a CGC 9.9, that would mean something. But it came back a 9.8. So yeah, I'll probably, out of all these books, this is the one I will throw up on eBay and see what I could get for it. If I could get more than 12 bucks, I will be ahead of the game, except for fees. So there you go, Penny, at 9.8. This one is also interesting. This is Y, #1. And I hope there's not too much glare. I try to have this here, maybe if I get in the way. Here's what's interesting about this. I actually sent this to PGX maybe a year or two ago, and I had them press it. So I had it raw, bought it raw. It was supposed to be near mint. I knew it wasn't near mint, so I sent it off. Asked for it to be pressed. Came back a 9.2 PGX. I sent it to CGC. I lost 0.2. It came back a 9.0. But when I look at the grader's notes, which again, I got grader's notes on all of these free with this service, they do kind of make it a pain to print them off, but I do have them, and I do plan to print them off and then put them in back of the slab. Anyway, my point here is PGX pressed this, and I still lost a few points, and the grader's notes, the errors are not blunted corners, but they're creases. Not color breaking, just creases, things that could be pressed out. So, again, if they pressed it, it didn't stick, it didn't last, or they just didn't do a very good job. What else do we have here? A few more. G.I. Joe. This was a 9.6 PGX, came back at 9.4. You know what? I just noticed that maybe you weren't seeing the labels on all of the others. I'm sorry, I'm not going to redo the video. The grades are what I mentioned. You really don't see much with the label. But yeah, this was a 9.6. Bummed that it came back at 9.4. This, again, I bought raw, and it was beautiful. So I was not surprised with the 9.6 when I got it. Witchblade, here's another one. This one, I remember I bought off the shelf when it first came out. Paid cover price, whatever, $2.90, $2.50. And PGX graded a 9.6. And without pressing or anything else, got a 9.8, which I'm pretty happy about. It's not really a hot book anymore, but I do like it. Batman, this is the one that I am bummed about the most. Not that it's a terribly expensive book, but it was a 9.8 with PGX, and it really, it's a really sharp book. And it came back in 9.6. I think they said there was like a couple minor creases, which, I've seen color breaking, a very small color breaking crease, and have them graded a 9.8. I'm bummed because there's no reason to have this book graded unless it's a 9.8. A 9.6 really doesn't do me any good. But anyway, it is what it is. And that's what we got on that one. We have Ultimate Spider-Man #1 was a 9.6, still is a 9.6. I remember buying this one from a comic shop years ago. Did not buy it at cover price. Again, it was a half price sale, and I was really struggling to pay. I think I paid $10 or $15, no more than $15. But I remember in my head struggling, do I want to pay that much for a comic? And glad I did, because it's a really good series also. Preacher 9.2, and that was a 9.2 as well, so that one did not change. Captain Canuck 9.8. Again, only bought this. I found it on eBay. It was pretty cheap a couple of years ago. It was a PGX 9.8 and came back a 9.8. And here's another very surprising one. Star Wars 42. I think it's, yeah, it is the first appearance of Boba Fett. And bought this on eBay as a PGX 9.4 Star Wars. Let me see, I have a note here. 9.4. And came back at 9.8. CGC bumped it up from a 9.4 to 9.8. So really happy about that. And the last one is Marvel Superheroes Secret Wars number 8. And this was a 9.2 and still is a 9.2. So after, I think this is the third video I've done on the crossovers, here's what I've determined for myself. I still like CGC graded books better. I don't trust what's in a PGX book because of, if you go back, the conserved and the loose or detached cover. And I think I had one other issue with the Justice League. So I am much happier with CGC books. But as far as grading services, one being stricter than the other, I'm not seeing it because these grades are all over the place. It just goes, I bet I could crack every one of these out, send it back to CGC and get, 20% with different grades. So, it's nice to have them protected. Yeah, I don't think I would send, and I haven't sent any raw books out to either company in a long time, a couple of years, and probably wouldn't unless it was a really, really expensive book. I'd prefer to buy them graded so I know what I'm getting. But otherwise, I would stick with CGC or CBCS. And but as far as grades, they are subjective. They are not exact. And for that reason, I believe they should just have wider ranges, because then a book could fall into that range. But anyway, there we go. Hope you enjoyed the series of PGX CGC crossovers, and always looking out for others who have sent them in to see what their results were also. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Take care.